Hey guys, it's Chris, and welcome back to the show, one I affectionately call The Smoke Break. This is episode 2. If you saw episode 1, this is kind of a new thing I'm doing. I started last week, and it's going to be more of a podcast-style commentary thing where I can do these multiple segments, maybe chop them up occasionally. And by the way, there will be timestamps in the description below for those that may not like the Marvel segment, but you love the Star Wars segment or the book segment or movie segment. All will be segmented, and that way people can kind of skip to what they want to see. But I'd really appreciate it if you dig this show or dig this format. Give me a like there and hit that subscribe button as we try to rebuild this channel. We have to do something different. So I don't think doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is going to be the way to go here. That is obviously the definition of insanity. So we'll just do something different here, and it'll make it a lot easier on me. So I will be a lot more healthy mentally to do this type of thing, as opposed to watching a show and trying to rush at 3 o'clock in the morning and film a video just to get it out first, only to get 500 views, which does nothing. So I really appreciate everybody who does watch everything and comments, likes, and shares and all that stuff, but I have to try something different. So today's episode, we'll be doing a quick update on the book. I do have some information on that I'd like to share. We have a movie segment, as usual, and talking about the Snyder cut of the Justice League and some of those differences from the original film. We have a Star Wars segment. We're going to talk about the Cara Dune situation, Gina Carano. We have to talk about it. This is getting ridiculous, and so we'll get into that. Be sure to hang around for that one. And then also a Marvel segment as well, talking WandaVision Episode 6 and what we can expect going forward in the next few episodes. So anyway, really quickly, let's jump right into it, and I want to give you a quick book update. I have now received feedback from 2 different developmental editors. These were sample edits, one paid, actually, so sample edits of the first couple chapters, and really, really good feedback. I'm really excited about the whole book situation. I'm currently doing revisions based off that feedback as well, and the full edit I have actually booked now. So we do have a date that will start as far as the full developmental edit, and that will be April the 5th, I believe. The first week in April. I can't remember the exact date. So I do have editing booked. And the good thing about the critiques I got back, and good stuff as well, but the critiques pretty much lined up with my own concerns, because you have to remember I started this over 2 years ago. So the first, I don't know, probably 10, 15 chapters were older, especially the first 2 or 3. And I think I've become a lot better as a writer since then. So these were some of the concerns as I've been doing these Wednesday writing videos, that I wanted to make sure I went back and followed my own advice as I learned throughout the years. So the main critiques pretty much lined up with what I thought, so that makes me feel better, kind of knowing as I went back and reread and did multiple drafts of the book, I kind of knew the issues anyway. So they just really confirmed that for me, so that made me feel better. I also got a lot of really good feedback as well from both of these editors. So that will be starting again in April. The plan is to release this book, get it printed in June. That may be pushed back a little bit if I have to. I'm going to make sure it's done right and everything as clean as possible. I'm going through now and doing revisions, cleaning up the prose a little bit, adding some little details and subtracting some things, moving some things around, all that good stuff. I want to put out the best debut novel possible. So I'm really looking forward to you guys reading The Crimson Gods. And by the way, thank you to all you guys who have already read it as my alpha/beta readers. As we go through this process. Really, really cool, and really appreciate all the feedback. Been a lot of good feedback so far as well. And very fair and valid criticisms, which I want. I want the honesty. So really appreciate it. We do have a campaign for this, by the way. Do have an Indiegogo campaign. I think there's like 28, 27 days left, and we're at about 40% of our goal, which is, would cover the majority of everything, because I am self-publishing, by the way. If you're new here and don't know this already, I decided to go the self-publishing route because I want to mainly keep control of my own stuff and have control over my cover and the design, all that good stuff, is mainly, and keep the rights to my story. Not to mention that if I decided to start querying agents and all that stuff, that's just going to take a while in and of itself. And then if I do find somebody that would like to buy the story and publish it, that's going to take well over a year at least, and that's just the process. So anyway, I am self-publishing. That link will be in the description below if you're interested in supporting the book. This is a pre-order. I'll be fulfilling these myself, and there's a couple add-ons, pretty cool add-ons you can grab there as well. So feel free to check that out. Or if you want updates on all this stuff, I do a Writing Wednesday video every week, pretty much every week, and as well as a blog post, and email out all that stuff to anybody who signs up for the newsletter. So you can go to chrismchristian.com and sign up for the newsletter there for all updates on the Crimson Gods, as well as other projects as well. I already have started the second book that will be in this world of Osgoth, the Crimson Gods series, and then also a children's book I actually have written. And I'll be working with my cousin Eric on that. He will be doing the illustration. And so that will be coming out as soon as we get that all together and laid out. I can kind of do that a lot quicker, obviously, than a full-fledged novel. So anyway, check those links out in the description below if you're interested in pre-ordering, supporting the project, or just signing up for the newsletter for updates. All right. So let's jump into the movie segment and talk about the Snyder Cut, Justice League. I want to talk about some of the differences that I've read is going to be in the actual movie as compared to the first version. So actually, let's go over here to YouTube and let's check out the trailer. I can't obviously play the whole thing here. Let me go to full screen. And so we have the trailer here, and we'll run through it really quickly, and I'll have to kind of pause it or move forward and maybe stop and talk or talk over it, obviously just to avoid a copyright strike. But this will be out, I believe it's March, early March on HBO Max. So here's the new trailer, and then we'll run through a couple of these differences. So anyway, let's check out the Snyder Cut. I was going to say the Snyder League. Pretty much. I just... I wish that I like DC, right? Marvel's my favorite, but I do enjoy DC characters. I just wish they fucking knew what they were doing. Anyway, here we go. And again, I have to talk over this and pause it. So this is interesting here. I don't know if this is Superman when he died, I guess, because it looks like that's when he died. He still has the hole in his fucking chest there. But anyway, so we're going to see, this is one of the things obviously most people are excited about, the Superman, the original black suit Superman stuff that was supposed to be in it. So yeah, it looks like that's probably when he died.
The bells didn't rock.
I think that's probably Joker. I think that's probably the Joker talking there, which we'll see here in a few minutes.
Out in the dark.
Sounds like him.
Stars.
All right, so I'm sorry. You know, I have to pause this and talk over it as to avoid any copyright strikes. But it sounds like that's the Joker talking over the thing. This is going to be more of a Batman nightmare sequences, I believe. This is going to be expanded in the Snyder Cut.
The god is dead.
The god is dead. So that's the whole thing is, you know, with Superman gone. Here we go. All right, so we have lovely Diana here after we saw a little bit of the nightmare sequence. Now, I wonder if she is going to fly, because she learned to fly in 1984. Just to be clear, she learned to fly in 1984. I know, sorry, spoiler warning, if you hadn't seen Wonder Woman 1984, I highly recommend you don't. Unfortunately, this was not a good movie, but we're not here to talk about that one right now. The first Wonder Woman was by far the best DC film, probably even superhero film ever. Maybe next to Joker in the sense of DC. But anyway, the point being, it was really, really good. Patty Jenkins did a hell of a job directing it. The problem is that she wrote the second one, and I don't think it was really that great. It wasn't probably as horrible as people will say, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good. So anyway, this really shows you the difference between DC and Marvel when, you know, she learned to fly because she is a god, demigod, and then she learns to fly in 1984. But then in Justice League, she's godlike, but she can't fly. So I don't know how this is the problem with not having a plan. You know, I'm looking at you, Disney, Star Wars.
Looks like a premonition.
So we're going to see more of Darkseid.
If there's an attack coming.
There he is right there. So we're not going to see Darkseid, I don't think, throughout the whole movie, but they are going to go ahead and show you the big bad villain that, as opposed to just Steppenwolf doing his work, which he still will be, obviously. But this is, you know, this is the Thanos of the DC universe, as far as him being in the background. So again, just like everything DC, they go ahead and rush all this out without even having the origin stories of our heroes, much less Darkseid and some of the villains. So they're going to put him out here in the movie now, not throughout the movie, but I think we'll see scenes here and there of what's really going on in the background. But of course, now, obviously, the movie's been out a long time. Cat's out of the bag. We knew this was coming. So we have Darkseid. The new Steppenwolf. That's another thing really quickly. They're going to redesign Steppenwolf. All right, and the other thing, too, I wanted to mention, just to pause this, is, again, to avoid any copyright issues, is I'm looking forward to more of the backstories of the actual characters. So we're going to get more Barry Allen. We're going to get Iris West in here, which they cut out of the original. We're going to get a little bit more on Cyborg, Star Labs, all that good stuff as well. I believe we'll even get a Martian Manhunter scene, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they put that back in there, so they're kind of introducing other characters here. So I'm looking forward mostly to more of the backstories on the characters. Obviously, we're going to get Flashpoint here. I don't even know when it comes out. Is it a year away or 2 years away? No idea. I don't know much about DC release dates. But the point being that I'm looking forward to some of the backstory, as opposed, for example, he finds Barry Allen, the Flash, and he goes up, and basically you get a 2 or 3 sentence origin story where he says, I have to eat a lot of pizza, a lot of food, because I have such a fast metabolism. When Batman just says, okay, so you're fast. And he says, so I feel like that's an oversimplification, because he is the nerd. I do like Barry Allen. I do like this Barry Allen for sure. A hell of a lot better than any of the CW shows. All the CW shows, I used to watch The Flash on CW. I watched Supergirl for a while. And then as soon as they started putting in all their bullshit politics into it, I was done. I will not watch anything on the CW. It's all political garbage. I watch these shows to go into these worlds and escape real-world politics, and that's all they've done. They decided to ruin every show by making sure it's all about wokeness, essentially, as opposed to good stories. The problem when you do these type of things where you focus on wokeness and for woke points is that now you have to build a story around the characters as opposed to having good characters drive the story. Anyway, the point being, I don't watch CW, but I am looking forward to seeing more of these origin stories around specifically Barry Allen and the Flash. We know enough about Batman, obviously, and the big Superman reshoots. All right.
How do you know your team's strong enough? If you can't bring down the charging...
So another thing I wanted to mention is the parademons. I believe there was an article I was reading about the original one had Batman on the roof, and he finds the parademon, or he captures it with the siren thing. And I believe he's going to now read it from Lex Luthor's book, some kind of book, whether it's a journal or whatever. That's what I read on the website. So I think, I don't know if that scene will be cut. Maybe that would just verify what he read, but he will find out that they feed on fear, because obviously that sets up the end of the movie, assuming they do it the same way. I don't know if they do it the same way as far as the parademons turning on Steppenwolf, or the original idea of Diana beheading the bastard. So we'll see what they do. Obviously, this is a big thing here, is the Superman stuff. There we go. Here's Iris. So there was Barry saving Iris. So I believe that was originally shot, but they cut that out. There we go. Black suit Superman. And we'll get more of the Barry Allen story here with his father being, convicted, wrongly convicted, I should say. So I am looking forward to that mostly, of all the things.
He said the age of heroes would never come again.
Pause for copyright reasons. All right. And we got Black Suit Superman. So that I really look forward to that fight as well, by the way. The fight where, they bring him back, which he was never really dead in the first place. Give me a break. They're going to have, they got to, I enjoyed the fight. It was okay. But, Black Suit Superman, he should have a beard. Who shaved him in the casket? Things like that is what bugs me about well, all movies. I'm pretty cynical now as I get older. You know, you find these things. You know, you're not as willing to just kind of overlook things. So that's just me being the old fucker I am. All right, so we got one more little scene here.
Society,
There we go.
where honor is a distant memory. Isn't that right? Batman.
There we go. So there's Jared Leto's new Joker, where they've taken away his grill and his tattoos and all that stuff as well. So I like this a lot better than the Suicide Squad Joker. Now, again, maybe this is just in his nightmare and he'll still look like that. I don't know about the Suicide Squad reboot because honestly I don't care about it. But anyway, the point being is we have the Joker. And so that's the main differences is apparently is a more backstory, all the Superman stuff, the black suit Superman. We have Darkseid obviously going to show up occasionally throughout the film as the big bad, and then Jared Leto's Joker, this version of the Joker. What do they have? 47 versions of the fucking Joker, but this is the DCEU version. So they're not going to use the outstanding version that Joaquin Phoenix did for their DCEU, their main thing. Now let's just make a Joker movie and put it off to the side. It makes no sense. It's just a distinct difference between Marvel and DC as far as, you know, the team and how they plan things out a decade in advance, for Christ's sake. You don't have to go that in depth, okay? But let's have some origins of all these characters or whatever, and you're establish your universe before you jump into Darkseid, for Christ's sake. Anyway, the point being, it's out. It's been out for a while. It is what it is, and this one looks to be a lot better. All right, so let's talk about WandaVision. Episode 6 is out, and everybody is trying to break it down, all that good stuff. Really digging this show. Be sure to stick around also to the end where we'll talk about Star Wars segment. We'll have to talk about the Gina Carano situation with the Mandalorian. I try not to get political here, but we have to address it at some point. It's just getting pretty ridiculous, so be sure to stick around for that. But anyway, WandaVision Episode 6. Quicksilver looks to be sticking around. I have a website here. I think this is Looper. Their ending explains. So before I go through this, we'll see what they say. Haven't actually read this yet. I want to give you my thoughts as I typically do this in its own video. But the point being that Quicksilver looks like he's sticking around, and I hope he does. Went back and watched the other night The Age of Ultron just to kind of get a little refresher on Wanda and Pietro as far as Quicksilver. And this guy, this Evan Peters Quicksilver looks like he's sticking around. This was the Halloween episode, obviously. I really dug the little shout out throwbacks to the original comic uniforms or suits or whatever the hell you want to call them. I've never really liked Visions in the comics. I didn't really care for it, but it's a good shout out nonetheless. Obviously, Scarlet Witch, I liked hers a little better. It's a little cheesy now that you look back on it. But Elizabeth Olsen, she can pull that off fairly well, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so looks like he's sticking around. I do believe this will end up, leading to mutants. I think they're pulling from the House of M, and then the graphic novel, the Vision and the Scarlet Witch is the primary sources. But they're changing some things up, obviously, and mixing some things up. There's just so many shout outs in this show and so many Easter eggs. A lot of it is just shout outs and nods to things or whatever, really showing they know their material, their source material. But, it's making us all go crazy about what's going on in the background, because this is not all Wanda. I think a lot of it is, even subconsciously, she's trying to figure out, what is she actually controlling here. But we did see her this time expand the fucking hex, so obviously she's controlling that. Obviously, we all believe that Agnes is Agatha Harkness, the witch from the Salem witch trials. I think we'll get that revealed for sure. And she probably helped her with this whole thing, which is why she kind of asked her the other week, she kind of broke character and said, "You want to do that again?" And that just kind of was like, "What?" And Vision was like, "Wait a minute, what the hell is going on up in here?" So I think we'll definitely get that revealed. But she is not the only one doing this. I think she probably helped Wanda with this whole thing, because she is kind of she's not a villain per se in the comics, but she's not a hero either. She's kind of whatever. And she does help Wanda at some point in the comics as far as kind of mentoring her, being a witch herself. But I will say, I definitely don't think they'll go the Mephisto route. Maybe they'll go the Nightmare route. We mentioned Nightmare as well. A lot of Nightmare references too. But again, they reference everything, so it's really hard to put your finger on it. One of the reasons I will say is because, as far as not going the Mephisto route, is I don't think they have to take into account China. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when they release these movies and shows to China, they have to follow particular rules because the Chinese government would not want anybody thinking for themselves over there. So they have to leave out a lot of, supernatural stuff. They're not going to like some occult, devil-like figure on this show over there. So I don't know if they will, I'm not saying they would entirely base that decision off that, but a lot, because I'm sorry, Disney, when it comes down to it, their morals go out the window, and all their other political bullshit too when it comes down to money. So they have to take that into account, and I think every studio does, because China is part of those box office numbers, those worldwide box office numbers. And so I don't think they'll go the route of, and I know it don't make any sense. You're talking about people who are literally superheroes because they, a spider bit somebody in the fucking hand, for Christ's sake. Or whatever your origin story may be. But the point being that it's more of a occult, supernatural thing that they don't really enjoy. So I don't think they'll go the Mephisto route. Now, again, I'm not saying that's the biggest decision there, the biggest influence, but I think it's definitely has to be taken into account. We see Wanda, as I said, she actually expands the hex when they figure out what's going on with Vision. He's in trouble. We see Tommy and Billy, obviously Wiccan and Speed. They are now showing power, so they'll be setting up the young mutants for sure. I don't think that will be an immediate thing, but I do think that's obviously where they're going with Wiccan and Speed. So again, they were created in the bubble, in the hex or whatever, so they'll likely stick around. But we saw Vision come out, and Vision died again, for Christ's sake. I mean, he was getting pulled back in. Now, was that Wanda subconsciously keeping him trapped there? Probably, something like that. And then, of course, it took little Wiccan to kind of manifest his powers and sense that. So then we see her expand the hex to kind of, and I guess the idea was she was, trying to get him back in and saved him yet again for this reality. So she's definitely controlling a lot of it, but there's something obviously still going on in the background, and that's the big thing that people want to know what the hell is going on. Who is in the background? As we mentioned, and probably episode 3, when Monica got thrown out of the bubble, the hex, as they're calling it now, I did mention before that I think they'll probably use that as far as her origin story to become Photon. Now, she was the second Captain Marvel one time. She was Photon. She was also called Pulsar at one point. But Photon will be her, obviously, her call sign, like her mother's, being in the Air Force. And so I believe, we just saw kind of a verification that they are going to go with that backstory, that origin story about her going in and out of the hex a couple of times, and it's changing her DNA on a cellular level, I believe is the way Darcy put it. So she's going to go back in the hex at some point. I think the next episode, we saw the preview for that, where she drives the vehicle back in. So we're going to start seeing her become Photon, I believe. So I look forward to seeing Monica continue her little story as well. This time, Darcy got pulled in, though. So the question is, if she gets pulled in, I believe she's going to be a character and kind of lose her mind, too, while she's inside of this thing. So she's probably going to, Vision can kind of like wake people up, and maybe she'll do that. Maybe he'll do that to Darcy, and maybe he can get some information about what the hell is going on. I don't think she'll just become another character in there to be saved. She's still going to have to be part of this, like figuring out what the hell is going on with the rest of the team. So we'll see what Monica does when she goes back in there next episode. I'm assuming that's when that'll take place. They seem to be leading us in the direction as far as, this background villain of the Sword director. I believe he is Hayward, Tyler Hayward. At least they're leading us down that path. I don't know if it'll be accurate or not, or if they're just kind of throwing a red herring at us. But now he kind of seems to be, going towards the bad guy. We had Darcy going through his files, and we discover some medical history in there, a few other little Easter eggs as well. But he seems to be more worried about, capturing Wanda, killing her, whatever, to neutralize this weapon, or either take it for himself. As we know in the MCU, Sword is the sentient weapon observation program as opposed to the sentient world. So sentient weapon would be somebody like the Scarlet Witch. Obviously, she's a weapon in and of herself, just like Vision. So obviously, he was tracking Vision. Vision was in his lab. We saw a little flashback where the Scarlet Witch, Wanda, goes in there to take his body and reanimates him, or whatever in the hell she does. and that was probably part of the deal with Agatha Harkness or whatever. And the question is Agatha was also kind of out of it for a while there too, at the edge of town. So why was she out of it? Is she still under, she seems to be able to break character anytime she wants, right there with Wanda, but is it because she's far enough away from Wanda? Is she caught up in it somewhat too? Was she playing around just to fuck with Vision? I don't really know. So we'll see what's going on in the background. But the rumor is that we have a huge reveal at the end of the season, I'm assuming, that's bigger than the Quicksilver thing. They called it the Luke Skywalker moment for the Mandalorian, and that's a pretty big jump from Quicksilver or whatever. So I think a lot of people think it's going to be Magneto. If they go with the comics, which they do pretty much stick to the comic stories and origins, Magneto is her father. So how do they do this in the MCU? If mutants have not been around, how do we have her being the daughter of Magneto, who was in the Fox universe? How do they pull that over? So I think that's where they're going in some direction. So maybe it's kind of the reverse of House of M, where she says no more mutants. Perhaps she will now create mutants, but how does she create mutants or whatever if she exists before her father, is what I'm saying. So we get into some weird shit. So either way, I think this is all going to be straightened out in Doctor Strange 2, or at least it's going to lead to that. So we'll definitely get answers for the show. They won't leave us too big of a cliffhanger, I don't think. But in my opinion, they're leading to mutants in general. Obviously, they can now say something like, this energy source, or in Wanda's case, the Mind Stone unlocked her X gene, which of course is what causes mutants to have their powers in the first place. And this will also lead to Doctor Strange 2, which is the multiverse of madness. So I think that's where they're going. This Looper thing here we got, let's see. Spoilers. Common accurate costumes galore. So here we go again with the outfits. Young Avengers. So I mentioned that as well. Billy and Tommy grow up lightning fast pace. So yeah, they're definitely setting up the Young Avengers at some point. Director Hayward's plans. Here we go. So this shows you the sword perspective. This time around, we're getting a bit heated between Director Hayward and the team of Captain Monica Rambeau. And Jimmy Woo, the trio's desire to actually help one of those trapped in her suburban nightmare rather than, and see, there you go, the word nightmare again right there. They could do a nightmare style character, or maybe some type of amalgamation between Nightmare, Mephisto, or whatever. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. But, the question is if going inside of this hex, going through the damn thing, creates photon for Monica Rambeau, okay, now the Beekeeper could actually be Swarm at some point later on in the MCU. So we'll see what they do. I'm really curious to see it. I don't know if Doctor Strange showing up at the end of this thing would be that big of a surprise on a Luke Skywalker level as far as the way they put it. I think Paul Bettany, who plays Vision, said that himself. They were comparing it to the Luke Skywalker moment in Mandalorian. I don't know that any typical Avenger we've already seen would be that big of a deal. It's got to be somebody we have not seen in a while, or at least in this universe. So I'm thinking Magneto or something. We'll see what happens. So if she somehow pulled this version of Pietro over to the MCU, why not her father, Magneto, so she can find out more about her real origin story. Anyway, really digging WandaVision. And we'll do this again next week. If I do have time, I'll make a breakdown video on it. I don't want to get away from that completely. But we'll see. It's just hard to do it, 4 o'clock in the fucking morning. So we hope to talk about the Gina Carano thing, the Cara Dune thing from The Mandalorian. So we'll jump over here. Gina Carano was fired for quote-unquote abhorrent social media posts. Now, I took a look at this, and she's been in controversy back and forth for months and months because the Twitter mob, which that's exactly what it is, it's a fucking bubble that people live in, and you're not allowed to think any different from them or you're to be canceled. This has gone too far for too long, and this is not like my, point where, I got to defend Gina Carano. She can defend herself, and she's done so so far, and she's already moved on, essentially. The point being here is that this cancel culture thing where you label half the population Yahtzees, I don't think I can say the other word without being demonetized, I'm sure. and your fan base that, which is what they've done since The Last Jedi. You know, this is what I was talking about before with The Last Jedi. You can't just say the movie's bad or you have criticisms of the movie without being labeled something, because, you know, these people are not Star Wars fans. Ryan Johnson's not a Star Wars fan, for example. He hijacked Star Wars and did his own political agenda with the movie. So that's why most people hated it. That's why Mark Hamill himself hated it. It's not just a thing where just half the people who watched it are stupid. Because you had most people actually enjoy The Force Awakens, although it was a kind of a reboot of A New Hope. But it did what it was supposed to do. You know, it kind of introduced the new characters. You saw the old ones, but it kind of introduced a new generation, so to speak, which is what it's about, the Skywalker story. And he completely went away from that. So it's been going on ever since then. But then you have, you know, Favreau and Filoni coming in at Disney Plus, well, at Lucasfilm, and doing these shows like The Mandalorian. And now we have so many other ones coming that are really, really good, that gets back to the core of Star Wars with a lot of great characters, including Cara Dune. Now she's gone. So they fired her essentially for her political views. Now, we'll go over exactly what she did, and you can decide that for yourself. I'm not here to give you your opinion. But the point being is that she's gone. Gina Carano is gone as far as a Star Wars employee or a Lucasfilm employee, and she will not be returning in The Mandalorian or the new show, which was like something, The New Republic, I can't remember. I really wasn't going to watch it anyway because good is dumb. But the point is that she can't have an opinion on Twitter without being labeled something. So here we go. Actress no longer employed by the Mandalorian studio. So what she did essentially was she tweeted out this, and I will read it here. And there was a picture with it or whatever I can show you. It's not that big of a deal, I don't think. But she has been going, just to kind of, for some context, she's been going through this stuff for months and months and months. The hashtag fire Gina Carano was trending. And on the other side of it, the hashtag we love or we stand with Gina Carano trended as well. In my opinion, she's not really saying anything that controversial. She literally pointed out a historical fact here. So this is what she put out on a social media post, I believe on Instagram. And then the hashtag trended up again. And this time, Disney bent the knee to the Twitter mob and fired her. Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Yahtzee soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Yahtzee soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighborhoods hate them for simply being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views, she wrote. So that's what she put out. That's what they said was over the line. Now, I get it. I get, you know, making any reference to the Holocaust can be tricky. Probably shouldn't do it in general. But the point she's making is not to compare, you know, being, I guess, conservative to being a Jew at that time. That's not what she's saying here. She's saying is that's where we're heading. That's the general concept of where this thing is going. That's what they're doing. They dehumanize you for having a different opinion, and that therefore gives them, you know, I guess the ability to just cancel you without any ramifications, without thinking about, you know, the ramifications of someone losing their job, losing their livelihood. It screws over their family simply for thinking differently than you. Now, if she would have done something straight out horrible or said that directly, that's a different story. But what she's saying here is that that's what she lives in on Twitter, this Twitter bubble, and she is one to stand up to people about things like this. So if she has a different opinion and says, no, I'm not doing this, she got in trouble, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago, late last year, that people wanted her to put, for example, her pronouns in her bio, and she said no. And she put in beep, bop, beep in reference to, I think, R2-D2, and got canceled for that then. They called for her to be fired. Disney just didn't really say anything, but this time it was over the line, I suppose, and they fired her. So that's all she was saying. This was not something saying that she is like oppressed like the Jewish people in the 40s of Germany. That's simply not what she meant. Now, could she have done it a little better? Maybe. Done it a little more tastefully? Sure. You could argue that. That's not a problem. That's fine. The point being is what it boils down to is for points for the mob that don't even care about your product for the most part. They just, a lot of these people hijack these products, these fandoms. She got fired for it. But the point is here is just with this Twitter mob, you have this double standard because the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal, who she was apparently good friends with behind the scenes, and actually kind of helped her out understand his perspective on things like, you know, Twitter bios and all that kind of stuff, is what she said herself. He's done the same thing. Again, I'm not going to say it's the exact same context, but the point is making these references is not something new. They're allowed to do it, but she's not. So in that context, obviously, she was fired. He was not. Yes, he's the main character. That doesn't matter. If they have these standards, if Disney has these standards, Lucasfilm, then just apply the standards equally. That's all we're saying. So if we go over here, we have Mandalorian star Carano got fired after Holocaust tweet. Another Mandalorian star used Holocaust but still has a job. So Pedro Pascal himself, if we scroll down here, this is what he tweeted. This has been a while, and here's the full thing here. I'll show this just to be clear. Germany, 1944. America, 2018. Well, turns out this picture down here was not from America and not from 2018. It doesn't matter, some people say, but this is just to be clear, just to, you know, you got to flesh out all of this stuff because everything's nuanced. That's the problem these days with these conversations in 129 characters, where the fuck it is there's no nuance. There's no nuance to any of these discussions. That's why debates don't work for presidents, because they're not long form. You cannot answer a question on, for example, national security or foreign policy in 30 seconds. It's just for sound bites. That's all the fuck it is. You have to have long form conversations. This was from 2010, and this was not from America. This was a picture from Palestine. So yeah, I get it doesn't matter if that's actually the picture of America. If he's making this point that, you know, these kids are kept in cages. By the way, that was back in 2012, not the last 4 years. But they don't care about any of that. The point being is he made the same kind of comparison. Nobody said a word. He was like applauded for it. You know, because of feelings. And I get it. I get it to a degree, but people are misinformed about what actually is happening at the border. But the point is, he made that comparison. And another one, just to show you, and this is not to pick on Pedro Pascal. He can make these comparisons if he wants. I don't care. That's the point, though. You should be able to make comparisons and have an opinion and not get fired for it, unless it's just truly egregious and outright racist or whatever you want to call it. Pascal. Losers in 1865, losers in 45, and losers in 2020. So he's basically just labeled half the country, for sure, half the population, and compared them to Yahtzees. I mean, that's what he's doing here, but nobody said a word. Didn't get fired, didn't lose his job, not even a slap on the wrist or a, hey, you know, take it easy, because on that side of the aisle, it's okay. In that bubble, it's okay, because that's what you have to believe in that bubble. Because in order to not be canceled, you have to be in that bubble and believe these things, when obviously this is just dumb. This is just fucking stupid. People that wear this red hat don't believe in these things. Do some? Maybe. But usually it's more projection from my experience. So the point is that he puts out this kind of stuff. He has in the past, puts out these comparisons. There's been other examples of this too. But the point being that Gina Carano does it and saying, you know, just as a comparison, not a direct comparison, but as an idea of like, you know, look, this is the way you people on Twitter essentially is where she, I guess, hangs out most of the time, or Instagram, whatever it may be. This is what you do. You bully people who don't believe in the way you do. And if you have a different opinion, then you're fired. You're canceled. And it's ridiculous. And so I don't do politics on this channel. I never have, but I've always considered myself common sense. And I don't give a shit what your politics are. I don't care who you voted for. We all come together around these shows. That's why Game of Thrones was such a huge thing. I didn't give a shit in my community, hanging out, doing live streams, who people voted for, what your political beliefs were. We all got together to escape that stuff and came together and watched it as fans together. And so I do the same thing with Star Wars. I do the same thing with Marvel. I think that's the idea of all this stuff, all this entertainment. But they get into the culture, and then, you know, if you want to blast out your political opinions on Twitter, fine, go ahead. But that applies to everyone, and it's okay to have one view but not the other. Come on, if that doesn't make sense to somebody, you just don't want it to make sense, because And again, their reasoning is, well, these people are like this, so therefore they're not human, so therefore we're allowed to shit on them. And that's shit. Come on, that's living in a bubble. Get out in the real world. That's not how the real world operates. Just I don't know if that's a shock to anyone, but just because, for example, you voted for this guy does not mean that you supported this shit or this shit at all. As a matter of fact, it's typically opposite from what the media tells you. What he forgets here is this is his party's flag. And this flag got a lot of inspiration from this party. But of course, they won't talk about that. So the point being is, just to add to this really quick, Gina Carano did not know. She found out just like the rest of us. Gina Carano learned about the Mandalorian firing on social media, talks about being excluded from season 2 press by Disney. So she actually has spoken to, I believe, I have it here, Barry Weiss, and this is kind of a roundup of that as well. She spoke to Barry Weiss about this after being fired. She found out like the rest of everybody else on social media. So instead of, giving her a call and saying, hey, look, we don't agree with what you posted here, it doesn't fit with our values or brand, even though we just filmed Mulan in China beside an actual camp, you got to go. They just said it to Twitter. They told Twitter. They told the mob, the Twitter mob. Anyway, she spoke to Barry Weiss yesterday, and this is how we found this out on Barry Weiss's website, Common Sense with Barry Weiss. Barry Weiss, by the way, is a writer, opinion writer, who wrote a book, How to Fight Anti-Semitism. The point being here, she actually reached out and spoke to her about these things, about some of these particular social media posts. And says here, earlier on last year before The Mandalorian came out, they wanted me to use their exact wording for an apology over pronoun usage. I declined and offered a statement in my own words. I made clear I wanted nothing to do with mocking the transgender community and was drawing attention to the abuse of the mob and forcing people to put pronouns in their bio, she told me. Lucasfilm's response was to exclude her from all the press and promotion for the show, according to Carano. That was heartbreaking, but I didn't want to take away from the hard work everyone had worked on the project, so I said okay. That was the last time I was contacted about any type of public statement or apology from Lucasfilm. I found out through social media, like everyone else, that I had been fired. So she gets fired on social media and finds out just like the rest of us. And it turns out they tried to get her to apologize last year about her little pronoun bio thing that she had an issue with. But her point here is clear to me. And I think if you don't see that, I just don't think you want to see it, honestly. She's saying here, drawing attention to the abuse of the mob and forcing people to put pronouns in their bio. That's all she's saying is, I don't have to do it just because you do it. If you do it, go ahead, go for it, more power to you. But that don't mean I have to. Anyway, the point being that here with Barry Weiss, she goes through to show more people that use these type of things, and they're never scolded. They don't say a word because they fit the idea of following what the mob believes. This is where social media is just toxic and it's just trash. It's a dumpster fire. And I generally stay away from it. I post my little things on there occasionally, hey, I'm streaming on Twitch, or I got a new video coming out or whatever, but I don't get involved in these arguments in 129 characters because you can't. There's too much nuance in the world. There's too much nuance in each conversation, each political issue, just to label one thing this way or that way. It's not black and white. Nothing is. Nothing is. And so I'm trying to come at this from a common sense standpoint, give you my opinion on it. But, look, if they want to fire somebody, they're a private company. Yes, fine. I agree. I get that. That's fine. The problem is their hypocrisy, because they ignored the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal's tweets all those times, and other people's. They literally filmed the movie Mulan in China and thanked the Red Communist government, literally filming across the street from an internment camp. But that's nobody says a word. So when you want to talk about kids in cages and stuff, talk about it everywhere. Be consistent. That's what I try to do. In my personal life, politics, whatever, I just try to be consistent. Nobody can be completely. I get that 100%. There's always some type of hypocrisy in everybody's opinions and the way they live their lives, but try to be. That's all. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm trying to be fair about this. I don't want to just hammer on political stuff. But now, essentially, you have the Mandalorian. It's up in the air whether this continues. Obviously, Carano's gone, so no more Cara Dune. So Cara Dune, a very popular character. Toys were selling out, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, actually, the next day she did actually sign on with the Daily Wire and their new production company to produce and star in her own feature film. So good for her. She refuses to be canceled, and so she's moved on to something else. But, you know, it just sucks for the whole fandom because you had a lot of people that enjoyed Cara Dune as a character. She was possibly going to be in that New Republic show. I'm not sure if that was 100% confirmed. But if she was, that's certainly not going to happen now. And now Disney's actually feeling it. And you're never going to take down Disney. I mean, they're the fucking evil empire, obviously. They are the empire, for Christ's sake. But they're, you know, but I think they're surprised at the number of people who actually cancel their Disney Plus subscriptions based off of this. So while, again, in the end, you're not going to bring down the giant, you know, because they have like 95, they had 95 million subscribers to Disney Plus, I believe was the number, or close to that. But the idea that I think it's getting out that they're shocked. I think the executives are shocked on how many people actually took it seriously and canceled the shit. Now, maybe they'll come back before Mando Season 3. Apparently, that's still going to happen. Of course, we have Boba Fett coming as well, and then other Star Wars shows. But the point being, it's just ridiculous. You know, she just let her come to anybody for that matter. I mean, I don't want Pedro Pascal fired because he has political opinions that differ from mine. I mean, I don't care. I think he's a good actor, and I think he's good in The Mandalorian, and I think he's good in other things. He was a great Oberyn Martell, for Christ's sake. I don't care what you do in your personal life. I don't care who you vote for. But to get involved in this Twitter mob for points, for look at me, kind of virtue signaling, hey, look at me, I care. And then, you know, and whatever, do what you want to do. But just leave it out of the shows. Leave it out of the entertainment we can all come together and enjoy, because they try to put us in arbitrary boxes enough. They try to put us in these different groups and assign a certain level of oppression or whatever to these different groups, and it gets old. It gets old, and it's kind of ridiculous to get rid of somebody who is an actual independent, strong woman because she has a different opinion from the independent, strong women they support, and that's the point. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you saw this, or do you care? Will this affect your Disney Plus subscription, Mandalorian experience next year if it comes out, or anything else they do? Because here's the thing. For example, Favreau, I will say really quickly, Favreau is, I probably wouldn't agree with her politically, I'd imagine, but he is anti-cancel culture. So apparently he's really upset about it, you know, because they recruited her to be this particular character because she fit it so well. So I don't know. I don't know what they do. There's calls now for her to be rehired. Now, would she come back? I don't know. I don't know if she would. Would she come back for the fans who really enjoyed her? Maybe. I doubt it. So it looks like that era is over already. So, and we'll actually see if Pedro Pascal stays around too, because there's rumors that he got this role with the new Last of Us movie based off the video game, that, you know, maybe he didn't come back. Maybe he doesn't come back for season 3. I don't see that happening. According to him, he has no plans for him to leave, but there were some issues in the background that some people called and got some inside information on about the whole helmet thing. And sure enough, you did see him show his face a lot more in the second half of the season. Now, was that always the plan? Maybe. I don't know. But according to some of these people, he did have an issue with just being, you know, in a helmet the whole time and just doing voiceovers, because it's not even him all the time in the suit. So anyway, guys, that'll do it for episode 2 of the Smoke Break. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you feel about all this stuff? You have the Snyder cuts of Justice League coming out. You have WandaVision continuing to mystify all of us. And then, of course, you have the whole Disney Star Wars thing going on where Gina Carano is now gone and no more Cara Dune. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and a share. And, of course, be sure to subscribe to Get Everything and click that notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.